Right now, the stock market is rallying to all-time highs, and we are being told the economy is doing perfectly fine. Meanwhile, the physical flow of global energy is quietly grinding to a halt. To understand what is actually happening, you have to look at the two different ways the world buys oil. There is the paper price, which is the Brent futures contract you see quoted online and on the news. Then there is the physical price, what economists call dated Brent, which is what a country actually pays to have a real barrel of oil loaded onto a ship and delivered to a refinery. For 20 years, paper and physical oil tracked closely together, but recently they violently split apart, creating a $35 gap. The screen says $90, but real-world buyers pay over $130. This widespread represents a total breakdown in supply and demand. You cannot fake a physical logistics network. The ships are either arriving or they are not. This paper price gap suggests a temporary shield is holding the U.S. economy back from the full force of a global supply crisis. This volumetric cylinder represents the 100 million barrels of oil the global economy consumes daily. Because of blockades, 13 million barrels have been sliced out of the supply chain. Global emergency stockpiles offer only 2.8 million barrels. It barely dents the 13 million barrel deficit. The dominoes are already falling geographically. Asia sources roughly 80% of its oil from the Persian Gulf. Their deliveries basically stopped on April 1st, dropping the volume of oil reaching their ports to just 6% of what it was before the war. Countries in Africa are literally mixing their petrol with harsh chemicals to stretch whatever fuel they have left. Over in Europe, governments are taking extreme measures to intentionally destroy their own domestic energy demand because they cannot source enough supply. When entire nations are rationing power and diluting their gasoline, the $130 physical oil price is the objective truth. The global supply collapse is already here. If the physical supply is collapsing and factories are shutting down, what mechanism is keeping the American paper price of oil looking completely normal? It comes down to short positions in the futures market. A short position allows financial entities to sell a promise to deliver oil at a specific price on a future date without actually possessing a single drop of real oil today. Market insiders are dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into these paper contracts. They are weaponizing the futures market as a psychological tool to cap the price of oil, calming investors and hiding the physical shortage from the broader economy. The United States hasn't felt the panic yet simply because we are at the very end of the global transit route. The domestic market is surviving purely on a logistical buffer, burning through the final few tankers that managed to clear the strait weeks ago. That low ticker price is a financial illusion. It is an engineered delay designed to buy a few extra weeks of market stability before the physical reality lands on our shores. JP Morgan data pinpoints exactly when this buffer dies. The last ships to clear the blockade reach their final destinations in mid to late April. Once those pre-closure barrels are used up, the U.S. supply chain hits a brick wall. This triggers a short squeeze, a forced buying event. When those paper contracts expire, the sellers have to either produce the physical oil they don't have or buy it back at whatever the actual market demands. The cheap paper price will violently snap up to meet the $130 physical reality. This bottleneck extends to natural gas, the primary feedstock required to manufacture urea, the world's most common agricultural fertilizer. When fertilizer gets expensive, crops get expensive. It takes roughly 6 to 12 months for a spike in agricultural inputs to fully work its way through the supply chain and show up on the shelves. This guarantees a devastating hit to consumer purchasing power. The shock will hit the gas pump first, and by the second half of the year, it will be baked directly into your grocery bill. Right now, the stock market is pricing in zero recession and zero supply chain corrections. Wall Street expects this to resolve flawlessly. History tells a completely different story. This bar chart compares our current situation to the last 50 years of data. The 1973 Arab oil embargo and the 1990 Gulf War each took about 7% of global supply offline. Both events triggered massive market crashes and severe inflation. Today, we are facing a deficit of 15 to 20%. As this energy shortage drives broad inflation higher, the Federal Reserve will be forced to keep interest rates elevated. For a U.S. economy currently carrying $40 trillion in debt, those rising bond yields translate into billions in extra interest payments, triggering a fatal debt spiral. Financial manipulation can hide a deficit on a screen, but you cannot print physical atoms. When the last ship docks and the logistical buffer runs dry, the illusion ends and reality finally hits the real economy.